William Smith Hirsch, known as Butterfly Bill in the Rainbow Gathering community, was born March 23, 1947, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and died February 10, 2015. He spent his elementary school years in Albuquerque, his teenage years in Aurora, Illinois, returned to Albuquerque after a 4-year Navy enlistment, and earned a bachelor's degree in general studies from the University of New Mexico in the 1970s. He attended his first Rainbow Gathering in 1987 and continued attending the North American Annual Gathering every summer thereafter, becoming a prominent figure in the Rainbow Family movement and maintaining the website blissfire.com with extensive documentation about Rainbow gatherings. Sue Knox's eulogy for her brother, William Smith Hirsch, portrays him as a brilliant, free-spirited, and deeply creative man whose life revolved around music, independence, and community. Born into a highly educated and artistic family, Bill inherited his parents' intellectual and musical talents. After serving as an electronics technician in the Navy, he pursued a non-traditional path, traveling across the country for over 2 decades, taking day labor jobs that allowed him freedom and peace of mind. Settling in Lawrence, Kansas, he devoted himself to his home, his music, and his diverse interests, including languages, world cultures, and spirituality. Known affectionately as Butterfly Bill within the Rainbow community, he embraced self-expression through cross-dressing, which he found liberating and authentic. His 3 great loves were his church, the Renaissance Fair, and the Rainbow Family, each offering him acceptance and belonging. Knox's tribute emphasizes her gratitude to those communities for nurturing Bill's unique and extraordinary spirit. Reverend Bob Wickheiser's eulogy for William Bill Hirsch reflects on his individuality, faith, and symbolism as Butterfly Bill. Wickheiser recalls Bill's brief moment of fame when, as a young Navy serviceman in Okinawa, he appeared on live television beside Bob Hope, already showing his independent spirit by keeping a beard against military norms. Bill's faith embodied the baptismal prayer's call for curiosity, courage, and joy, and his unique presence, through his clothing, demeanor, and creativity, challenged others to see divine goodness in diversity. Living simply and often struggling materially, Bill nevertheless reminded others, including his minister, of humility, compassion, and spiritual perspective. His Butterfly Bill name, born from a rainbow gathering, became a fitting metaphor for transformation and rebirth, and Wickheiser closed by likening his passing to a monarch butterfly's emergence, symbolizing Bill's soul ascending to eternal peace and light. Rainbow Gatherings by William S. Hirsch is an autobiographical chronicle of the author's decades-long journey through the countercultural Rainbow Family movement, beginning with his first baptismal gathering in 1987 and continuing through years of exploration, disillusionment, renewal, and reflection. Blending travelogue, memoir, and ethnography, Hirsch portrays the gatherings as a spiritual and social experiment, part utopian commune, part chaotic festival, where ideals of peace, equality, and freedom collide with human flaws, poverty, and conflict. Through vivid scenes of communal kitchens, psychedelic rituals, and councils run by consensus, he examines the paradoxes of a tribe that claims to reject leadership yet depends on strong personalities, celebrates love yet struggles with disorder and hypocrisy. The book evolves from personal awakening and self-acceptance, including his gender expression, into a broader critique of how the rainbow movement interacts with law enforcement, society, and its own ideals, ultimately revealing both the magic and the messiness of seeking harmony outside Babylon's boundaries. In the preface of Rainbow Gatherings by William Hirsch, Butterfly Bill, the author explains that the Rainbow Gatherings, annual, non-commercial gatherings in national forests, had been taking place for nearly 4 decades but had rarely been documented in writing. He observes that rainbow culture is primarily oral, sustained through storytelling, music, and shared experience rather than formal records. Hirsch notes that only a few full-length books have attempted to describe the gatherings, often with inaccuracies or outsider perspectives. In contrast, his own account draws from 14 years of direct participation, aiming to convey both the emotional depth and the complex social dynamics of the gatherings. He clarifies that his work is a personal, subjective record rather than an official history. No one can speak for the entire Rainbow Family, which consists of diverse individuals united by voluntary cooperation and spiritual ideals. Ultimately, the preface frames the book as both memoir and ethnography, intended to preserve an experiential truth of rainbow life and inspire others to share their own stories. In the Virgin Gathering, North Carolina, 1987, Bill recounts his first rainbow gathering, which became his initiation into the countercultural world he would later document for decades. He first heard of the Rainbow Family in 1977 while working at a New Mexico vegetarian cafe frequented by hippies and leftists, where 2 travelers mentioned they were headed to a rainbow gathering. 10 years later, in 1987, he finally attended one in North Carolina, experiencing the event's communal living, spiritual openness, and free-form organization firsthand. The chapter describes his awe and occasional discomfort with the mix of idealism, chaos, and eccentric personalities he encountered. It captures the contrast between the utopian aspirations of peace and love and the messy realities of living without formal leadership or structure. For Hirsch, this virgin gathering was both a baptism and a revelation. It opened his eyes to a new form of community that rejected mainstream norms, and it marked the beginning of his long engagement with the Rainbow family and its evolving culture. In The Confirmation Gathering, Texas, 1988, Bill describes how his second Rainbow gathering deepened his commitment to the Rainbow family and its countercultural ideals. After returning from his first gathering, he became involved with alternative communities and local activism in Charlottesville, Virginia, attending Green Party meetings, volunteering at the Prism Coffee House, and joining Shannon Farm, an intentional community that embodied many of the communal and spiritual values he admired. His experience at the Texas gathering reaffirmed his connection to the movement. He found tolerance and acceptance for his personal eccentricities, as well as awe at the group's ability to organize massive, leaderless events in the face of government pressure. Despite inefficiencies and internal conflicts, he saw moments of harmony and magical intensity that convinced him he truly belonged. By the end, he likens this gathering to a religious rite of passage, his confirmation, marking his full initiation into Rainbow culture and identity. In the Felipe Gathering, Pennsylvania Regional, 1988, Bill recounts attending his first regional Rainbow gathering, held in the Allegheny National Forest of Northwest Pennsylvania. Smaller and more intimate than the national events, this gathering was organized by the Mid-Atlantic Rainbow Outreach, MARO, and brought together people from Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and the Virginias. Hirsch describes his late-night arrival, hiking through the dark forest to find the main meadow glowing with firelight, drumming, and dancing, a magical confirmation that he had found his community. The gathering's atmosphere was more spiritual and less hedonistic than the larger ones, emphasizing connection, cooperation, and personal reflection. He witnessed acts of unity, such as rainbows planting trees with prayers and positive energy, and he felt an even deeper bond with the people and the ethos of the Rainbow family. The experience strengthened his emotional attachment to the movement and marked a deepening of his personal romance with the Rainbow. In the Bug Gathering, Vermont Regional, 1989, Bill recounts his longing to return to Rainbow Land after months of mundane life in Babylon, the term rainbows used for mainstream society. Unable to travel to the faraway Nevada National Gathering, he instead joined a regional one in Vermont's Green Mountain National Forest organized by the New England Rainbow family. The chapter vividly contrasts the joy of reunion with the Rainbow community against the alienation of Babylon. Hirsch describes reconnecting with friends, donning his dresses freely, and feeling embraced for his unconventional self. The gathering mixed music, nature, and spirituality in a way that revived his spirit, reminding him of why he was drawn to these circles of peace and freedom. By the end, a symbolic encounter, being gifted a poster reading Celebrate Life encapsulated the affirmation and liberation he found there, making the Bug Gathering a powerful expression of self-acceptance and communal renewal. In the Rain Gathering, regional on the border of Virginia and West Virginia, 1989, Bill details the planning, scouting, and experience of a Mid-Atlantic regional Rainbow gathering that became one of his most formative. After helping organize it from the earliest stages, attending council meetings, scouting locations, and designing the flyer, he joined a small group that chose a beautiful site straddling the Virginia-West Virginia border. The event lived up to its name with heavy, persistent rainfall that tested everyone's endurance and adaptability. Despite the mud and discomfort, Hirsch found beauty and unity in the shared struggle, describing nights spent under tarps trading stories and laughter while water poured around them. The rain became a spiritual teacher, tempering his romantic idealism with practical wisdom about nature and community life. By the end, he felt both stronger and more deeply bonded to the Rainbow family, seeing the experience as a rite of purification that deepened his faith in the movement's resilience and love. In the cross-sectional study, North Carolina, New York, and West Virginia Regionals, 1990, Bill undertakes a personal sociological experiment to observe regional differences within the Rainbow family by attending 3 East Coast gatherings, the Cachua in North Carolina, the NERF in New York, and the Mid-Atlantic in West Virginia. He compares the character and spirit of each, noting how geography, local culture, and climate subtly shaped the gathering's atmosphere. The Southern Cachua group emphasized warmth, tribal identity, and earth-centered spirituality. The New England gathering reflected intellectualism, activism, and a deep sense of historical continuity, and the Mid-Atlantic event balanced these qualities with a communal practicality and humor. Through this cross-sectional study, Hirsch discovers that while the rainbow family varies by region, the same ideals of peace, love, and cooperation unite them all. The chapter reveals his growing insight into rainbow culture's adaptability and resilience across diverse communities. In The Climbing Gathering, Vermont, 1991, Bill describes the excitement of returning to a national rainbow gathering after 2 years of smaller regional ones. Held in Vermont, the event was chosen during the previous year's Vision Council in Minnesota and promised to be massive due to its proximity to major northeastern cities. Hirsch hoped to recapture the powerful, awe-filled feeling of his first gathering in 1987, though he recognized that the magic of a first time could never be fully repeated. The chapter intertwines his personal life, his relationships at Shannon Farm and struggles with social acceptance as a crossdresser, with his anticipation of rejoining the large, diverse rainbow community. The Vermont gathering represented both a physical and emotional climb, a return to the grand scale of the movement and a reaffirmation of his connection to its ideals of openness, love, and personal authenticity. In the No Rain Gathering, regional on the border of Virginia and West Virginia, 1991, Bill recounts a smaller, more spontaneous Mid-Atlantic regional rainbow gathering that took place at the same site as the earlier rain gathering. After a lack of energy and coordination for scouting new locations, the organizers reused the old site, and fittingly, this time there was no rain at all. Hirsch attended for 2 weekends around his regular job, finding comfort in revisiting familiar terrain and old friends. He describes exploring remnants of earlier constructions, enjoying music and psychedelics around the kitchen campfire, and noticing how the forest had naturally reclaimed areas once cleared. The mood was mellow and communal, though marked by hints of fatigue and lingering interpersonal tensions. Despite these undercurrents, Hirsch appreciated the continuity and endurance of rainbow spirit in the face of disorganization, seeing in the No Rain Gathering a symbolic balance to the stormy trials of earlier years. In the Nut House, Washington, D.C. and surrounding area, 1991 into 1992, Bill recounts a period of personal transition and reinvention following his growing restlessness in Charlottesville and the end of a relationship at Shannon Farm. Drawn to the vibrant rainbow community centered around Washington, D.C., he decided to relocate after losing his job, a turn of fate he viewed as the universe pushing him toward change. Selling or giving away most of his belongings, he moved to Maryland, living at a campground while seeking day labor jobs. Hirsch reflects on the freedom of this lifestyle, valuing honest, hands-on work over bureaucratic employment systems. The chapter's title, The Nut House, evokes both the chaotic energy of DC's rainbow scene and his own sense of liberation in embracing a more transient, unconventional existence. It marks a turning point where his connection to rainbow life deepened beyond the forest gatherings into year-round community and personal philosophy. In The Withdrawal, 1992 into 1993, Bill describes a period of deep disillusionment and burnout after years of immersion in rainbow life. Following his time in Maryland, he removed his rainbow sticker and distanced himself from gatherings entirely, feeling alienated by what he saw as hypocrisy, irresponsibility, and disorder within the community. He criticizes the family's wastefulness, unclean living conditions, and pervasive poverty, as well as contradictions between its ideals, like peace, love, and environmentalism, and its members' actions, such as smoking tobacco and driving gas-powered vehicles to eco-conscious events. Hirsch also grew weary of the moral posturing and lack of courtesy he sometimes encountered. Yet even as he vented his frustrations, his reflections reveal an ongoing affection for the ideals the movement tried to embody. The Withdrawal marks a painful but necessary reckoning, a moment of separation from the rainbow family that allowed him to regain perspective before eventually returning to it with clearer eyes. In The Hungry Drum Gathering, Kentucky, 1993, Bill recounts a chaotic and memorable rainbow gathering that split into 2 separate sites due to disagreements over location, one in Alabama and one in Kentucky. Lacking the funds to travel farther, he stayed in Kentucky, where the reduced attendance gave the event a smaller, regional feel. Dependent on communal kitchens rather than private supplies, he often felt a lingering hunger throughout the gathering. Yet amid this scarcity emerged moments of abundance. The Turtle Soup Kitchen and its circle of drummers created nights of powerful, complex rhythms that filled the air with energy and unity. For Hirsch, the combination of physical hunger and ecstatic drumming became symbolic of the gathering's paradox, both deprivation and transcendence. He thus named it the Hungry Drum Gathering, seeing it as an imperfect but deeply human reflection of rainbow life's beauty and struggle. In The Rainbow Guide, 1993 to 1995, Bill describes how his involvement with the Rainbow Guide publication reconnected him with the rainbow family after a period of disillusionment. The Rainbow Guide was a grassroots directory listing names, addresses, and contacts of gatherers, along with the RAPs, guidelines for communal living, and the evolving mini-manual explaining rainbow culture and practices. After meeting Zoe, one of the guide's coordinators in Kansas City, Hirsch helped computerize hundreds of handwritten entry cards using Microsoft Excel and revise the mini-manual's text for the 1995 edition. Despite minor tensions over formatting and software, his version was ultimately approved by consensus and printed for distribution at the New Mexico National Gathering. The project renewed his faith in the family, showing him that some members valued organization, literacy, and collaboration. Seeing his name credited in the mini-manual gave him pride and a sense of recognition within the movement, marking this period as a creative and redemptive chapter in his rainbow journey. In the Marathon Gathering, New Mexico, 1995, Bill chronicles what became one of his most exhausting yet transformative rainbow experiences. Arriving early to help set up the national gathering, he immersed himself in organizing and maintaining the infrastructure, particularly in kitchens and information areas. The harsh desert environment, long duration, nearly 7 weeks, and constant interpersonal conflicts tested everyone's endurance. He witnessed clashes between idealism and burnout, as well as confrontations with law enforcement and internal disputes over resources. Yet through perseverance and patience, Hirsch earned respect from rainbow elders and movers and doers, achieving a sense of belonging within the informal leadership circle he once viewed with awe. He describes the event as his ordination, following his earlier baptism and confirmation gatherings, symbolizing spiritual maturity within the rainbow family. Despite the chaos, he learned that true leadership meant maintaining peace amid turmoil and transforming adversity into growth. In the Too Easy Gathering, Missouri, 1996, Bill recounts a year of relative calm for the Rainbow family following several turbulent national gatherings. The Missouri site was easily accessible, close to towns, and free from major conflicts or hardships, hence the name Too Easy. For Hirsch, who had weathered years of difficult terrain, interpersonal drama, and heavy labor at previous gatherings, this one felt almost anticlimactic. Without the usual logistical or emotional challenges, the communal experience seemed less intense and transformative. Still, the gathering reflected a hopeful period of improved relations with the U.S. Forest Service, as legal rulings had reduced prior tensions over permits and access. Hirsch uses the chapter to explore the paradox of ease. While comfort and convenience made life smoother, they also dulled the spiritual edge that struggle had once sharpened. The Missouri Gathering thus stands as a quiet interlude in his rainbow journey, a reminder that growth often requires discomfort. In the Shantisina Gathering, Oregon, 1997, Bill recounts his journey to the National Rainbow Gathering held in Oregon's Ochako National Forest, the longest trip he had ever made for a gathering. Having worked steadily in Lawrence, Kansas, and discovering early internet communication via Hotmail and the alt.gathering.rainbow newsgroup, he learned of the event's location online. Determined to attend despite the distance, he embarked on a multi-day drive across the western states, facing car trouble and long, solitary stretches of travel. Once there, he immersed himself in the complex social fabric of the gathering, where the Shantisina, the Rainbow family's peacekeeping circle, played a central role in resolving conflicts and maintaining harmony. The chapter reflects both the logistical and spiritual dimensions of rainbow life, highlighting Hirsch's evolving understanding of non-hierarchical community order. Oregon's remote beauty, the challenges of cooperation among thousands of free spirits, and the lessons in self-restraint and collective responsibility left a lasting impression on him, making this gathering one of maturity and reflection in his rainbow journey. In the Warm Fuzzy Gathering, Arizona, 1998, Bill recounts his journey to the Rainbow Gathering held in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest of central Arizona. Traveling from Kansas in his newly bought truck, he faced a string of mechanical mishaps, including radiator failure and multiple tire blowouts, but viewed his ability to overcome them as an instance of rainbow luck. Once at the site, he found a landscape parched by drought and coated in dust, a sharp contrast to earlier rain-soaked gatherings. Despite the dryness, the spirit of community thrived, and Hirsch described the event as having a balance of ease and depth. It was comfortable but not dull. The gathering earned its title from the abundance of warmth, affection, and good energy he experienced among the participants. To him, the Arizona event symbolized a period of emotional healing and reaffirmation of faith in the Rainbow family after years of struggle and introspection. In the second Hungry Drum Gathering, Pennsylvania, 1999, Bill recounts the National Rainbow Gathering held in Pennsylvania's Allegheny National Forest, the same region as his earlier Felipe Gathering but on the opposite side. The event was marked by renewed tension with law enforcement, as U.S. Forest Service officers, LEOs, once again sought to force a permit and targeted 3 longtime rainbows as supposed leaders, issuing them citations for illegal group camping. Despite these external pressures, the gathering itself was lively and diverse. Hirsch encountered eccentric characters, such as the plumber, who symbolized the mix of absurdity and creativity that defined rainbow culture. While the first week was idyllic and full of music, laughter, and community, the second devolved into exhaustion, heavy rain, and frustration, evoking memories of the original Hungry Drum gathering. He left feeling that, as always, there was no such thing as a bad gathering, only some better than others, and that the beauty, chaos, and contradictions of rainbow life continued to mirror both the movement's strengths and its human frailty. In the Montana Gathering, Montana, 2000, Bill recounts the Rainbow Family's 2000 National Gathering, which he names simply after the state because both the land and the people of Montana shaped the experience. Traveling from Kansas, he experienced what he called another car repair miracle, when his truck's transmission failed conveniently across from a repair shop, an event he viewed as evidence of rainbow synchronicity. Once there, he spent most of his time at Montana Camp, where familiar figures like Plunker and Robbie gathered around campfires and teepee circles. The chapter focuses on Hirsch's stewardship of the Magic Hat, the collective fund for food and supplies, detailing the meticulous accounting of donations and expenses. Though interpersonal drama and mishandling of funds marred the cleanup, Hirsch felt deep satisfaction in earning the community's trust and in helping sustain the gathering's infrastructure. He saw this event as both a logistical triumph and a spiritual culmination of his long participation in rainbow life, where community cooperation and cosmic chants intertwined meaningfully. In Vision Council, Montana, 2000, Bill provides an insider's view of the Rainbow Family's consensus process during the 5-day Vision Council at the end of the Montana National Gathering. Having resolved to finally witness a full council from start to finish, he filled 60 pages of notes while listening to the long, meandering speeches that reflected the diversity of beliefs and personalities within the rainbow community. The council's official purpose was to choose the state for the next year's gathering, but discussions expanded into philosophy, spirituality, environmentalism, and the meaning of family. Hirsch presents excerpts of these speeches to illustrate the group's blend of idealism, eccentricity, and democratic persistence. The session ultimately reached consensus on Washington with Idaho as a backup, but for Hirsch, the experience mattered more than the outcome. It encapsulated the beauty and frustration of a leaderless society striving for unity through open dialogue. He concludes that small councils, like those in kitchens or camps, often achieve truer consensus because participants know and trust one another. In conclusions, Butterfly Bill reflects on his long journey through rainbow culture, framing the book as a spiritual and emotional arc, first a romance between himself and the Rainbow Family, filled with love, heartbreak, and renewal, and later a story of vocation and realism. He contrasts the movement's utopian ideals with its complex realities, noting that while the Rainbow Family proclaims to have no leaders and to live by consensus, in practice many informal hierarchies and strong personalities shape its workings. Through decades of participation, he observed both inspiring cooperation and chronic inefficiency, moments of transcendent unity and of human folly. By the early 2000s, he laments, escalating law enforcement crackdowns had replaced the freer spirit of earlier years, turning gatherings into scenes of tension and surveillance. Yet he closes not with cynicism but with affirmation. Despite repression and imperfection, the Rainbow Family remains a living experiment in voluntary community, spiritual equality, and collective resilience, a tribal anarchy bound by the conviction that we are all one.